now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
Good morning. Thanks so much for tuning in. It is 6:06. It's O'Connor and Company. We've got a great lineup today. At 6:35, we'll talk to Alfredo Ortiz. He's the CEO of Job Creators Network. He'll talk about the economy and Harris's. Does she have an economic or jobs plan? Oh, well, we'll find out. At 7:05, Joe DeGeneva. 7:35, Noah Montgomery. He's running for Ward 7, D.C. Council. Get his thoughts on things in the city. And at 8:35, Mark Mix, president of the National Right to Work Legal Defense Foundation on, you guessed it, Labor Day and the state of the economy. I'm Julie Gunlock alongside Andrew Langer. Good morning,
hey there,
Andrew.
everybody. Hi. Happy Labor Day to you, Julie.
Happy Labor Day to you too.
I know we got May Day, we got Labor Day. I'm eagerly awaiting the arrival of our socialist overlords.
Well, it is great to see you, Andrew. It's been a while since we've talked. And joining us now is Robert Chernin. He's the creator of Israel Appreciation Day. Robert, thanks so much for joining us today.
Good morning.
Good morning, Robert. We are eager to hear about Israel Appreciation Day. But first, I wanted to get your reaction and thoughts on the absolutely tragic news that broke this weekend that 6 of the hostages were murdered by Hamas, one being an American. You must have been just horrified hearing this news.
I think all of America and all of the civilized world was horrified. If it doesn't drive home the point that Hamas is evil, I don't know what is. If October 7th and the murder of these 6 hostages, can't define evil, but I know it when I see it. And if we can't call this out for evil, the question really has to be asked, have we lost our humanity? And perhaps we in the Western world are beyond redemption. It was just a heinous act.
Well, there is a lot of chatter out there about how this will pressure Israel to agree to some sort of ceasefire deal. But Israel has agreed to ceasefire deals. Israel's not the problem. Isn't that correct? It's Hamas, which continues to walk away from the negotiating table.
That's correct, Julie. Israel is part of the solution, not part of the problem. Israel has put forward peace agreements or peace offerings only to have them rebuffed. Let's be clear about this. Hamas does not value human life, whether it's Israelis or Palestinians where they use them for human shields. They are considered to be assets, according to Hamas leadership, that can be sacrificed to the greater cause, which is really to drive Israel and the Jews into the sea. You cannot make a peace deal with someone who doesn't want peace and wants your extermination.
Yeah, this is what I come back to as I explain the issue to people. It's like, okay, here's the reality, right? You have to ask yourself the question, if you're at all confused about this, right? What happens if today Hamas laid down its weapons and said we want to live peacefully as members of Israeli society? Israel would welcome them with open arms. But if Israel laid down its arms today, Hamas would turn around and wipe Israel off the map. That it should explain everything about what's happening here and on the ground there. Why is it, Robert, that people don't seem to grasp this simple concept? What's going on there?
Well, I think people smarter than me need to answer that question. I can only say that there seems to be this blindness in society of people who want to cast Israel as an oppressor nation, right? The narrative out there, and by the way, that's why Israel Appreciation Day is so important. The narrative out there is simple, even though it's inaccurate, that Israel is an occupier equals bad, and Hamas and Palestinians are a victim equals good. And that's why Israel Appreciation Day is out there, to try to change the narrative, to showcase all that's beautiful and important about Israel beyond just that it's a Jewish state or a U.S. ally. There's so much about Israel that they contribute to the world that people don't know about.
Tell us a little bit. You brought it up, but let's talk about Israel Appreciation Day. Give us sort of a sense of what's going to happen that day. It's September 18th. It's a live TV broadcast. What are people going to see?
So it's a live TV broadcast, and what we're doing is we're bringing together voices from across America, both Jewish and non-Jewish voices. It is It's not even bipartisan. It's nonpartisan. It's nonpartisan. It's interfaith. It's grassroots to give people, depth and breadth to all that makes Israel special. So the topics we're covering: freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, human rights, women's rights, rule of law, and all the technological and medical advances that Israel has contributed to the world that no one knows about. It's going to be a fast-paced, entertaining, and educational TV show. And it's not, here's the important thing, Julie, this, even though we have some political leaders participating in this is not Washington, the usual Washington, D.C. talking to the country. This is really the country talking to Washington, D.C.
Well, it's interesting, too. You're covering topics, I see here in the press release, you're covering topics that used to be universally agreed upon, at least in the United States and in Israel. Things like freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, human rights, gay rights, the rule of law, all of these things that we used to be in agreement on. And then you've got college campuses blowing up. Why is this event September 18th? I find the date very interesting because that is, probably a couple weeks after school starts up. What do you anticipate we will see on college campuses this year?
I think you're going to see on college campuses this fall what you saw in the spring, which is sort of an ignorant, and I apologize for the term, but an ignorant and uninformed student bodies who don't even know mostly what they're protesting for, other than, again, Israel is viewed in this small prism as this oppressor nation, which they're not. And let's be really clear, Julie, the other side to this is well organized and well financed. I mean, there's a reason all those tents look the same on those college campuses.
That's right.
They all went to the same stores buying the same gear, and you sort of go, wait a minute, this is just not possible. So you're going to see the same protest. I mean, I remember seeing certain journalists interviewing the kids on campus, asking them if they even knew what the river to the sea was, and they had no idea.
No idea. Right.
We're talking with Robert Chernin. He is the creator of Israel Appreciation Day, happening on September 18th. Robert, let me ask you this. I mean, obviously, we not that this is a political situation, but there seems to be this fundamental misunderstanding on the part of Democrats who are running for office about what the solutions are. We saw this in the sort of the weird mixed response that Kamala Harris gave on Thursday. We have to be clear and unwavering in our support of Israel. Giving mixed messages only sends support and comfort to the enemies of Israel. What are your thoughts here?
Andrew, you're correct. I mean, it used to be in this country, and I'm old enough to remember, where we as Republicans or Democrats or as a country may have disagreed with how to get to the goals, but we always agreed on what the goal is. There is now this moral equivalence where one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter, and that's just wrong. So we've lost the ability to call out evil when we see it, and all we are doing is giving comfort to the enemy. And let's be clear here. Israel is fighting our battles as well. Death to America is here in this country. Israel is fighting an external enemy. That enemy is here chanting death to America inside America's borders.
Yeah. Robert, we have so much to talk to you about. We want to talk to you about the Harris-Waltz campaign and some of the things we heard this weekend. Can you stick around for the next segment?
Oh, absolutely. Pleasure. Okay,
great. It's 6:15. Robert, thank you so much for staying with us. Over the weekend we are talking to Robert Chernin. He's creator of Israel Appreciation Day. Robert, we saw some weird video this weekend. Tim Waltz was at the Minnesota State Fair and he was walking around. The news had broken hours before. It was sort of an overnight thing. But I woke up early in the morning and the news was out that the 6 hostages were killed, and Tim Waltz is in public at the Minnesota State Fair. If we can play cut 1, I want your reaction to this.
Governor, how are you feeling?
What's your reaction to the 6 hostages being found dead in Gaza?
All right. Thanks, everybody.
And I want to play cut 2 as well, because this is what he posted on X in the morning. Again, the news had been out for hours, and this is what he posted on X. Cut 2.
All right, Minnesota, breakfast of champions, pork chop on a stick. I've traveled to a lot of state fairs. While Iowa has a nice one, it does not compare with Minnesota, and the pork chops here, the best.
I'm having two.
I mean, Robert, I don't even know how to react to that. But again, refusing to take questions, and it was just one question prior to that woman saying, how do you react to the death of the hostages? There was two softball questions, similar to like, what's your favorite ice cream flavor? What's your reaction to that?
Well, the pork chops or the hostages, right? Which is more important? Clearly, the governor of Minnesota, and it's hard for me to hold back on this because that is such a softball question. He is a politician. He has been in this arena for so long. The fact that he can't answer a simple moral question and say something to the effect that the death of these 6 hostages was wrong and a heinous act by a cowardly people tells you everything you need to know about the governor of Minnesota and the fact that they're just trying to, it's sort of a new rendition of Biden's basement strategy, which it's the old Muhammad Ali rope-a-dope. Don't say anything and try to run out the clock through Election Day. And let's be clear, there is a huge pro-Hamas population in Minnesota, and clearly there's a political calculus that he doesn't want to alienate that base because getting elected is more important than doing what's right, and he clearly demonstrated that by his cowardly refusal to answer such a simple, basic human question.
Yeah, I mean, this gets into this issue of the political risk calculus that's being made. It stems from, obviously, Kamala Harris not selecting Josh Shapiro as her running mate and going with Tim Walz here. But this kind of false equivalency. It's an infection that goes through the Democratic Party. Tim Kaine over the weekend was making what I thought were very weirdly toned statements regarding a deal here. He said it was tantalizingly close. I mean, Yeah, let's go ahead and let's hear what Tim Kaine had to say.
The two halves have to come together. You're not going to see one without the other. It's been tantalizingly close. We're not there yet. But hopefully the tragedy will even put more of a sense of urgency.
I mean, it's tantalizingly close for Hamas because they see they're licking their lips in anticipation of getting what they want. But that's an oddly toned way to put it, isn't it, Robert?
Yeah, it's beyond tone deaf, but they're all getting their messages, Andrew, from the same playbook. Let's be really clear here. The IDF was going to rescue these 6 hostages, and rather than allow that, the Hamas killed them to deny Israel to get their citizens back.
Right.
That tells you the value they don't place on human life. So for someone like Senator Kaine or someone like Governor Walz not to call that out, again, it goes back to the fact that there's this moral equivalence that has somehow permeated not only the Democratic Party or Democrat Party, but the press is so unacceptable. And until we can call out evil for what it is, that's why Israel Appreciation Day is so important, because people don't understand that there's so much more to it than this. But at the core, this is about Western values. A friend of mine said to me that really we all have to stick together because, the Jews are the tip of the iceberg. This isn't really about just the Jewish people or about Israel. It's about Western values, because after the Jews, if they drive the Jews into the sea, Andrew, if you're Christian, you're next, because that's where this is going. So Senator Kaine, Governor Walz, it is unacceptable for them to not have a clear moral position that this is evil, regardless of who did it. This is evil.
Robert, really quickly, wanted to get your thoughts on this new report out of Columbia. It is a 91-page damning report that was released on Friday by the school's faculty-led anti-Semitism task force. It says that students were chased out of dorms, spat on, pinned against walls. Did you read this report, and what's your reaction to it?
So I've not read it, but I heard about the report. I'm an old country boy. That sounds to me a lot like closing the barn door after the animals have gone.
Yeah.
Okay. And animals is probably the right word here, because now the college kids are back on campus. And let's not forget, so Israel Appreciation Day, and for your listeners, please go to IsraelAppreciationDay.com. You'll have all the information you need. We did have a venue. It canceled us when they found out it's a pro-Israel event. It's now going to be bigger and better virtual. a virtual event. But we picked the time because the UN General Assembly is back in session. College kids are back on campuses, and there needs to be information and education out there for a counter narrative to this whole pro-Hamas stuff that's going on. But look, Columbia is what's the thing? You know, Andrew and Julie, CYA. That report to me is a CYA coming out of one of the Ivy League schools that is at the forefront of these pro-Hamas protests.
Robert, we can't thank you enough for joining us today. I think this is so important. Give us the website again so people can check it out.
Very simple, Julie. IsraelAppreciationDay.com. You'll have all the information you need right there. It's September 18th, 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. We have an incredible line of speakers from politicians to entertainers to thought leaders to some of just the leading. I mean, it's a really, really powerful program. IsraelAppreciationDay.com. And thank you, Julie and Andrew, for giving us the time to make sure everyone knows about this important event.
Thank you so much, Robert. Right now, it is 6:24.
Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
Good morning on this Labor Day morning. Thanks so much for tuning in. It is 6:36. It's O'Connor and Company. We've got a great lineup today. 7:05, Joe DeGeneva. 7:35, Noah Montgomery. He's running for Ward 7 on the D.C. Council. And at 8:35, Mark Mix. He's president of the National Right to Work Legal Defense Foundation on, you guessed it, Labor Day and the state of the economy. I'm Julie Gunlock alongside Andrew Langer. Good morning, Andrew.
Hey there, Julie. Happy Labor Day to you.
Well, you know, it is Labor Day.
Yes.
It's important that we talk about people laboring in this country. But the problem is the Harris campaign doesn't have any policy information on their website. So it's really hard to know what she has planned. We do know that she's proposing a $5 trillion tax increase, the biggest in American history. But we don't really know what that is going to mean for the American public, and she certainly hasn't been asked about that.
No, that's exactly it. You know what it reminds me of? Back during the Obamacare debate, way back when. And by the way, you know, I find it really funny that Barack Obama said at the Democratic National Convention, he goes on and says, well, they don't, now that it's popular, they don't call it Obamacare anymore. A, I don't think it's all that popular, and B, I still call it Obamacare. Sorry about that. You know, sometimes when I'm trying to be technical, I'll call it the Affordable Care Act.
Yeah.
But I remember, you know, going to some events and dealing with the pro-Obamacare activists, because, right, they had Organizing for America had these legions of activists out there. And whatever plan you talked about, every time you talked about a specific in one of the proposals, they would say, no, you're looking at the wrong proposal. You're not looking at the right Obamacare plan. And it created this sort of shifting target that we kept having to go after. I mean, that's exactly what we're talking about. Here's what I know. I know that they've made a decision in the Harris campaign. She cannot separate herself from Joe Biden. They can't do it. So they're doubling down on it. That's what we saw in last week's interview with Dana Bash, doubling down on the successes of Bidenomics, even though she had to admit that prices are up. But so we know where they're going with this. They are doubling down.
Yeah.
And the stuff that is different is just insane. I mean, it
is a giant sort of leapfrog over to socialism here. We do know these details. Her plan includes raising the corporate tax rate from 21% to 28%, raising the capital gains rate to match the personal rate, ending the step up in basis for estates, taxing unrealized capital. That is the one, unrealized capital gains. And allowing the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act to expire. Our economy and the prices and the inflation, I don't want to think about what our economy is going to look like if she implements these policies.
Here, I've started to come to the conclusion, Julie, that Kamala is far more involved with this stuff than we've been letting on. You know, there's a whole thing. You know, one of the issues I was working on, I think you know this, was this proposal, the literal proposal by the Biden administration to seize patents in the name of, you know, prescription drug price controls. And you will recall that it was Kamala Harris. She was the only candidate running in 2019 and into 2020 that was talking about this issue of seizing them. And then 4 years later, miraculously becomes, Biden administration policy. I've been working on an op-ed whose thesis is believe Kamala Harris when she promises this stuff. This is not her staking out ground and then she's going to lean back on it. When she says she wants to tax unrealized capital gains, she means she wants to tax unrealized capital gains, which would have such devastating consequences throughout the economy. Whether it's, the dissolution of family farms to depressing investment in corporations. I mean, this is just nutty stuff. Go ahead.
I don't really understand the unrealized capital gains.
Oh, sure.
I explain that.
All right. So if you make an investment, the simplest thing is if you buy a house and that house goes up in value, that is an unrealized capital gain, right? You haven't sold your house.
Right.
You haven't sold it, so the value of your house goes up. What this idea is you would be taxed more. You would be taxed by the federal government if your home's value goes up by $100,000 in a year, right? And
you already pay property tax based on the value of your house, not what you bought
exactly
it for.
Right.
So this is double taxing.
Right. This is essentially a double taxation. But remember, when your house gets valued and your value goes up, in valuation by your municipality, you can go and appeal those things.
Right.
It's a pain in the patoot, but you can go do that. With the federal government, you can't do that. But imagine that with the same thing with stock. So if I buy a stock for $10 and I'm really successful at it, and that stock goes up to $100 a share or $1,000 a share, I would be taxed every year on any sort of an increase in that. I haven't done anything with it, right? It's still sitting in my account. So if you're a retiree, right, or you're someone who has been investing in your 401k over the course of many years and the value of that 401k goes up, you'll be taxed on that. Why would you bother investing in a 401k? Why would you bother saving for retirement? Because you get penalized every time the value goes up. Oh, and by the way, you don't get a rebate on that. So let's say you buy 100 shares of a stock and they go up and you wind up making $100,000 in the value of it. If that stock then bottoms out to $1 a share, you lose 99% of its value. You don't get any kind of a rebate. You've already paid taxes on it. So it is quite literally an insane Rube Goldberg way of looking at the tax system.
That's helpful, Andrew. I appreciate it. We've got more
Thanks.
coming up. It is 6:43. Okay, Andrew, we need to get through this next. We need
it's
to get through
your
this
feel-good
next
story of the day,
Yes,
Julie.
exactly. We need to get through this next segment without getting bleeped.
Oh, yes.
Can we do this?
Is this a challenge?
Now, didn't you live in Maryland for years?
Oh, yes.
So you're
Yeah,
the
very much
problem
so.
here. See, I'm
without
a
a
nice
doubt.
Virginian, but
Well,
apparently, go ahead.
Time out for a second because Virginia also is as high on this list too, which is shocking to me.
Don't change the subject, okay?
Yes.
Don't change the subject. Maryland has been named the most foul-mouthed state.
All right,
okay,
why-
Virginia ranked fourth, but still.
Why do you think Virginia ranked fourth? It's because a few years back I moved from Maryland to Virginia, and so I brought that with me. Listen, I made it so that a Republican could get elected governor in Virginia, and I brought the foul-mouthedness with
Well,
me.
I
But
tell
no,
you,
I'm
the
not
fact,
shocked.
honestly, the fact that Virginia ranked fourth, it's probably entirely because I live among crazy women in Alexandria, Virginia. So that might be why. But this is interesting. Maryland has been named the number one state according to this new study. A study released by Word Tips tracked the number of swear words posted on social media site X, analyzing 170 million geotagged posts to determine the most and least foul-mouthed state. Virginia was named the fourth, with Louisiana being second and Georgia being third. South Dakota was named the state that swears the least. They're so
of course
nice
it
in
is.
South Dakota. The analysis found Baltimore, Maryland is the city that swears the most, and Lexington, Kentucky is the city that swears the least. Those Kentuckians, they're so nice. South Dakota, that was the state.
Well,
that
remember
swears
in
the least.
Kentucky they're mostly American, so that's that's the reality there. Listen, I am not surprised at this. I am a little surprised at the fact that New York ranked number 15 on the list. But again, it's because they swear in person. It's not on the social media post. They sort of they know better. But really, isn't it what they're really saying is that it's the D.C. area where the DMV where we wear our hearts on our sleeve, and so when we get into the social media, I mean, I think that posting. See, I didn't get bleeped there. The concept of poop posting was probably invented in the D.C. and Maryland areas.
Possibly.
So that's where it comes from. Listen, all I know is I'm gonna throw Maryland under the bus here. All I know is that now, whenever I see a Maryland license plate on a car, I'm automatically steer clear. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna watch you very carefully because I'm not happy with Maryland.
Do you actually? I am embarrassed to say I do swear a lot. Do you swear a lot personally?
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah, I've got an incredibly foul mouth. But I mean, now I always attributed that to growing up in New York, but maybe it's not a whole thing. I mean, I was always under the impression that New Yorkers can use the F word in a whole sentence to mean both the noun, the verb, and the adjective, F you effing F, and sort of go through there. It's some variation on this. But apparently this is not a New York thing.
Well, I have to say I do love that they also did this worldwide, and in Europe, the top 4 are England. The top 4 cities.
Well,
I
sure.
mean, number 5 is Dublin, but I mean, no other European city gets into the top 4 except England. Newcastle, Leeds, Birmingham, and Manchester. In Asia, Singapore is the number 1. In Africa, it's Lagos.
I'm going to admit something here on the air that I don't think I've ever admitted on the WMAL airwaves.
Oh, dear.
Are you aware? Have I ever told you that the word Langer, Langer, my last name Andrew Langer, is a it's not a curse word, but it is an insult in Cork, Ireland.
Really?
I'm not making this up. Yes,
I'm
not making this up. It means someone who is a boorish a-hole. Someone who sticks his nose where it doesn't belong, and it's just
you
a
are
jerk to
opening
everybody.
yourself up to so many jokes. I can't believe you just said that on the air.
I'm happy to admit this on the air. Listen, anybody who goes and looks, will be able to find this out. There's a whole song. There's a guy who wrote a song called the Langer Song, wherein we say this. So listen, I am not surprised. I just want to know. I didn't look at this. I want to know where New Jersey ranks on this list because I would hope that at least Jersey would be in the top 10. In all of this, but I'm not sure here. But
I'm surprised. Good point. I am surprised New Jersey isn't.
But think about this. I mean, just in terms of the fact that Maryland and listen, I don't know how Georgia and Louisiana figure into all this, but you figure that in the same way that California and New York get all the glamorous people sort of going there, L.A. and New York City. In D.C. we get all of the folks from every state in the union who wants to again troll each other and get angry with each other about things.
Yeah, I will say
that's where we are. We refine it.
I will say that I find it interesting that this study was based on posts on X. I will say when you say a word out loud, okay, now if you get me in the car, I am horrible. I am horrible. But, in an actual conversation, I'm not throwing out cuss words like crazy. But on X, sometimes I try to be careful. But I imagine some people, especially anonymous accounts, you can, people are stringing them together. But
I actually find if I am going to use a curse word on an X post, I will, like with the F word, I will reverse the C and the U in that word, and so I'll spell it a different way, just so because I don't want to say the actual word on X because I'm a policy professional. I'm sorry, go ahead, Julie.
No. That I just think that it might skew the results if it's based on X posts. Yeah.
I think you're absolutely correct here on that.
Well,
so anyway,
look,
go ahead.
we have more going on, and stick around for that right now. Beep, beep, beep. Just kidding. It is 6:53.